I didn't realize anything was wrong until she closed the door and sat down beside me too close and said my name like it meant something different. Now, 2 hours earlier, the hospital had called to confirm she'd been discharged. I remember that clearly because the nurse spoke fast, like she was already late for something else, and I wrote the time, 6:40 p.m. on the back of an envelope. I told myself I was just being helpful. That's the lie I kept repeating. Helpful, temporary, nothing complicated. She had nowhere to go. That was the phrase she used when she texted me. Just for tonight, I answered 3 minutes later, of course. By 7:15, she was standing in my doorway with a plastic bag of belongings. And that look people get when they've already decided something but want you to believe it's mutual. Her hair was still damp from the hospital shower. She smelled like antiseptic and lavender soap. I noticed that before I noticed anything else. I told myself not to. She thanked me too many times. That should have been the first sign. People who are just passing through don't thank you like they're laying groundwork. I made tea. Chamomile, she didn't. Drink it, she wrapped both hands around the mug and stared at the steam like it was doing something important for her. I sat on the far end of the couch, knees angled away, body language loud with distance. I remember thinking, this is good. This is clear. She talked about practical things, paperwork, follow-up appointments, how the couch at her sister's place had been too small. Her voice was steady, but her foot kept tapping against the rug out of rhythm. I watched it instead of her face. At 8:02, she asked if she could sit closer. I'm cold, she said, even though the room was warm. I hesitated just long enough to matter. When she shifted beside me, the couch dipped. Our shoulders didn't touch, but the space between us changed temperature. I could feel her there in a way that wasn't physical yet, like a held breath. This is stupid, she said suddenly. I asked what was pretending. This is normal. I laughed once too quickly. It is normal. You needed a place. I had one. She turned, then really turned. Her knee brushed mine. Not an accident. Her eyes searched my face like they were checking for unlocked doors. You've always been good to me, she said. That sentence landed wrong, too broad, too final, like a summary. I told her she was just tired, that everything feels heavier after a hospital stay. I said it gently, like a professional lie. She watched my mouth while I spoke. At 8:17, she reached out and rested her hand on my forearm. I don't want to be alone tonight, she said. Not here. Not in the apartment, alone. I told her she wasn't. I pointed out the obvious facts. Walls, lights, me sitting right there. She didn't move her hand. You don't understand, she said, and then quieter. Or maybe you do. That's when I realized the evening had already split into a before and after, and I missed the exact second it happened. I stood up too fast. My knee hit the coffee table. The mug rattled. She flinched, then laughed like she was embarrassed for both of us. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have. I just thought I cut her off. Told her she was safe, told her she could sleep in the bedroom and I'd take the couch. I said all the right things in the wrong order. She nodded too easily. When she walked past me down the hallway, her fingers brushed my wrist again, slower this time, deliberate. At 9:03, I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the sounds of someone settling into my space. Drawers, fabric, the soft click of a lamp. I told myself this was still fine, still simple. Then she came back out, sat beside me again, closer than before, and said, "Can I ask you something?" I didn't answer fast enough. What if? She said, "This isn't just about tonight." That was the moment I understood. I hadn't just offered her help. I'd offered her access. By 9:11 p.m., I was fully awake in the way you get when your body knows something your brain refuses to admit. She sat there waiting, patient like she'd already rehearsed the moment, and I was just late, hitting my mark. Head, then how did you mean it? I opened my mouth and closed it again. The ceiling fan clicked overhead. Once, twice, I noticed stupid details because the real ones were dangerous. I said carefully, "You're going through a lot. People reach for comfort when they're scared." Her mouth curved into something that wasn't a smile. And you think that's not what this is? She moved her hand from my forearm to my wrist. I felt my pulse betraying me before I could stop it. "This is exactly what it is," she said. "I'm scared, and you're safe." The word, safe, hit harder than it should have. Safe meant predictable. Safe meant not asking questions. Safe meant she'd already decided where this was going and was surprised I hadn't followed. I stood again, slower this time. "I think we should sleep." She looked up at me from the couch, eyes darker now, voice steady. "You're already awake." That was true. I hadn't slept since the envelope, the phone call, the knock at the door. Since I said, of course, like it didn't cost anything. "I don't want to cross a line," I said. She considered that, then asked, "Which line?" That was the problem. There were too many stacks so close together they blurred. History, timing, the fact that she cried in my kitchen last month and I'd held her like it meant nothing. The fact that I liked how she fit into silence. She patted the cushion beside her. "Sit. Please just sit." I told myself it would be temporary again. I sat. She didn't touch me this time. She leaned back, folded her legs under herself, gave me space like a favor. That restraint was worse. "I thought," she said quietly, "that you felt it, too." "Felt what?" She looked at me then, really looked like she was measuring the damage already done. "That this isn't just convenience, that it's been building." I shook my head. "You're misreading things." Her laugh was soft, tired. "You always say that when you're scared." I didn't deny it. I couldn't. She shifted closer anyway, shoulder brushing mine, not lingering, passing like a reminder. "I don't need you to promise anything," she said. "I just need to know I'm not crazy." I stared straight ahead. The TV was off, reflecting us faintly. Two people too close, pretending they weren't. "You're not crazy," I said, and immediately hated myself for how easily it came out. She exhaled like she'd been holding it all night. Then stay. Stay where? "Here," she said, "with me just tonight." I told myself again it didn't mean more. That lines don't move unless you let them. At 9:47, she leaned her head against my shoulder. I didn't move. At 9:52, her fingers lazed through mine, slow enough that I could have stopped it. I didn't. By the time the clock clicked to 10 o'clock, the couch no longer felt like a boundary. It felt like a decision I was making in increments small enough to deny. "This doesn't change who we are," she whispered. I knew that wasn't true, but I also knew something worse. I wanted to believe her. At 10:18 p.m., the hallway light clicked off and the apartment fell into a softer darkness, the kind that makes everything feel closer than it should. She was still leaning against me fully now. Her head settled into the space between my shoulder and neck like it had memorized the shape. My arm was trapped beneath her weight, numb and burning at the same time. I didn't move it. Moving would have meant deciding. "This doesn't have to be complicated," she murmured. That sentence scared me more than anything else she'd said. I stared at the far wall at the faint outline of a picture frame I'd never bothered to hang. "Things become complicated," I said. "Whether we want them to or not." She lifted her head slightly, just enough to look at me. "You're thinking too far ahead." That was true. I always did. I was already seeing the aftermath. Awkward mornings, conversations that start with "we need to talk." The quiet resentment that follows when someone realizes comfort isn't the same as commitment. But I was also thinking about her breathing. Slow, uneven, like she was trying not to ask for more. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she said, reading me too well. "I just don't want to feel like a guest in my own feelings." She shifted, turning toward me fully now. Our knees touched, stayed that way. At 10:31, she took my other hand. This time, she didn't lace her fingers through mine. She just held it palm to palm, waiting. I should have said something firm, something clear. Instead, I asked, "What do you want?" She didn't answer right away. She studied my face like she was checking whether I was already gone. "I want to stop pretending this is accidental," she said finally. There it was, the thing we'd been orbiting all night. I pulled my hand back. Not fast, but enough to change the balance. She noticed immediately, sat up straighter. Gave me space again like it hurt to offer it. "This is why I didn't say anything before," she said quietly. "I knew you'd retreat." "I'm not retreating," I said. "I'm trying not to make things worse." Her laugh was brittle. For who? That question stayed between us unanswered. At 10:44, I stood and walked to the kitchen under the excuse of water I didn't drink. I leaned against the counter, counted my breaths. When I turned back, she was watching me with an expression that made my chest tighten, resigned but not angry, like she'd already adjusted her. Don't know how to say yes without breaking something. She faced me then, her eyes were wet but steady. "Some things only break if you keep them locked up." We stood there, the space between us thick and loud. The clock on the microwave read 10:52. I remember that because the numbers blinked once like they were unsure. I crossed the distance before I could overthink it. Not fast, not dramatic, just enough to be undeniable. She didn't step back. When I touched her arm, she inhaled sharply. Not because it was sudden, but because it confirmed something she'd already decided was real. This doesn't mean forever, I said, needing to say it out loud. She nodded. I know, but the way she said it told me she didn't mean the same thing I did. At 11:03, we were sitting on the edge of the bed, fully clothed, space between us, but not much. She looked smaller here, stripped of confidence, fingers twisting together in her lap. I thought, she said, voice barely above a whisper, that helping would feel less lonely. That sentence landed harder than any touch. I realized then what I'd missed all along, not tonight, but before. Way she'd lingered in conversations. The late replies, the way help had slowly become presence. I told myself I was doing a good thing, but good intentions don't stop consequences. When she leaned her head against my shoulder again, I didn't freeze this time. I rested my cheek against her hair. That felt like crossing a line I couldn't redraw. This is the last time we pretend this is nothing, she said. She wasn't asking. And in that moment, I understood the truth I'd been avoiding since 6:40 p.m. I hadn't just helped her because she needed me. I helped her because some part of me wanted to be needed. The next morning, I woke up alone on the couch at 6:12 a.m., the imprint of her weight still pressed into the cushion beside me. For a few seconds, I convinced myself I'd imagined everything. The dim light, the closeness, the way her voice had changed when she said my name. But then I heard the shower running down the hall, steady, unhurried, and the truth settled back into my chest like something returning home. I hadn't gone to bed. I remembered that clearly. I'd sat there after she drifted off, staring at I stood there wrapped in my towel, hair damp, eyes softer than they'd been the night before. Not hopeful, not apologetic. Settled. That scared me more than anything. I'll be out of your way soon, she said. I just needed one night where I didn't feel like I was disappearing. I nodded too quickly, like I was eager to agree to terms I hadn't helped, right? We didn't talk about what happened. We talked around it. Logistics, coffee, when she could grab her bag. It was all very polite, very careful. The kind of conversation people have when they're trying to protect something fragile by refusing to name it. At 7:03, she left. She hugged me in the doorway, brief, controlled, and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." The door closed. The lock clicked. Silence rushed back in. That's when I finally understood what I'd gotten wrong. I'd spent all night thinking. The moment everything changed was when she sat next to me or when she touched my arm or when I didn't pull away. But that wasn't it. The truth was quieter, earlier, smaller. It was the moment I answered, of course, without asking why me. I hadn't just helped her because she needed a place to stay. I helped her because I liked being the place people landed when they were falling. That's the part one hadn't wanted to admit to her or myself. I like being needed. I like being the calm option, the safe one. I tell myself it's kindness, but sometimes it's control dressed up as generosity. She didn't cross a line. I built the doorway and left it open. A week later, she texted to say she was doing better. Found a temporary place. Thanked me again. Nothing else. No late night messages, no questions. And I didn't reply right away because this time I was trying to notice the moment before things blurred. The moment where help turns into something else if you're not honest about what you want. I still think about her sometimes, about how easily I could have convinced myself the night meant nothing. How easily. I almost did. But now I know the most dangerous thing I said wasn't when I told her she wasn't alone. It was when I told myself I was just helping her because that was the first lie.